Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this joint resolution of disapproval. Today, we can protect consumers and ensure continued access to financial services by voting to nullify the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's disastrous rule on overdraft fees. In a time burdened by the 40-year high in inflation, when many middle and low-income households are living paycheck to paycheck, ensuring Americans have access to affordable credit has never been more important. Overdraft protection is an optional service that financial institutions provide to help consumers avoid having purchases declined. Instead of the transaction being denied, the bank or credit union charges a flat fee to cover the check on behalf of that consumer. Let that purchase proceed. Let that payment to a utility company proceed. Let that payment for an important rent or mortgage company to proceed. Allowing American families to take care of essential needs like that mortgage payment, rent payment, groceries, or gas before their next paycheck arrives. Over the last decade, competition has driven financial institutions to lower their overdraft privilege fees to retain customers. Innovation has made accidental overdrafts less likely, as many financial institutions now offer low balance alerts, automatic transfers from savings, and other tools to help consumers avoid being in overdraft and better manage their financial cash flow. Competition and innovation, not government-mandated price caps, remain the best way to ensure consumers have access to affordable financial products and services. Unfortunately, this CFPB rule undermines this very approach and threatens to restrict access to credit and overdraft privileges, which all of us should be concerned about. The CFPB's rushed and haphazard approach to the rule is a clear example of how not to regulate. The CFPB made this decision before conducting meaningful research or considering the real-world consequences of its actions. The CFPB rule imposes a government-mandated price cap on what financial institutions may charge in the way of a fee for an overdraft privilege. Like all price caps, this would reduce the availability of these very overdraft services, especially, Mr. Speaker, for consumers who have lower credit scores or considered higher risk. By doing so, it effectively limits access to credit and that overdraft privilege for those who need it the most at the time they need it the most. The CFPB's failure to consider the costs associated with this regulation, especially the real-world impact on consumers, their local community financial institution, and the broader financial system, only underscores the need to stop this price control before it's too late. The CFPB also creates a false narrative of choice by suggesting that banks and credit unions can either offer an overdraft service at this federally mandated price-fixed cost of $5 or comply with extending that as credit and therefore complying with the Truth in Lending Act. In other words, actually underwriting a consumer loan instead of simply offering the overdraft, simple, straightforward, fast overdraft fee. This redefinition of what products and services constitute credit thus is problematic, especially since Congress has already defined credit for regulatory purposes. Even more troubling is the way the CFPB oversimplifies the cost of providing overdraft protection. The rule only considers the cost of operating a call center and ignores the many other expenses involved, such as ratifying and dealing with consumer disputes, mailing postage for overdraft notices, third-party collection expenses, technology costs, cost of regulatory compliance. The reality is that these additional costs make it increasingly difficult for banks to continue offering overdraft protection. Many will simply choose to stop providing the service altogether. And those who will suffer the most from this, the very people the rule is designed to protect. Mr. Speaker, in 2023, a survey found that 92% of customers who were aware their balance wouldn't cover a transaction preferred paying the overdraft fee rather than having their transaction declined. Not only is it inconvenient or potentially embarrassing in a particular situation, but it's also fundamental to in-between paycheck cash flow. I'm taking the decision to go into overdraft so I make that mortgage payment on time despite buying clothes for back to school, trying to do Christmas shopping. In my experience with my customers, I never found one who was not a worthy steward of how to use these services over my many years of working with families. Another survey found that 64% of customers think it's reasonable for a bank to charge an overdraft fee, and 72% feel these fees are justified, particularly when it helps them ensure a timely payment of a much larger, important bill like a mortgage or rent. In my experience of helping families across rural Arkansas for many years, as I said, managing their finances, they're pretty smart about how to do that, Mr. Speaker. The truth is, if consumers lose access to overdraft protection, they will be forced to turn to alternative sources of credit that may be more expensive, riskier, less consumer protection, less documentation, less holistically handled as they would be at their home community financial institution or credit union. I encourage all my colleagues to support this resolution to restore common sense to our regulatory framework and ensure that consumers continue to have access to the financial services on which they rely. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady is recognized.